And our next guest just toured the Bluebonnet facility this week. She joins us live, so we are looking forward to hearing from you. Democratic Texas Congresswoman Julie Johnson, who is also a vice-ranking member of the House Committee on Homeland Security. Congresswoman Johnson, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Great to be here with you again.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about what you have seen and heard. What stood out to you during your visit to Bluebonnet Detention Facility?
Yes, I sit on Homeland Security. I'm on the subcommittee of the border. I live here in Dallas, Texas. And so I felt like it was my constitutional responsibility as a member of Congress to go out and exercise our right of oversight. Previously, members of Congress could show up unannounced. But now Kristi Noem has refused admittance to any member of Congress without a prearranged appointment. So we had to request our appointment. We had our approval. We had to provide 7 days notice. And so it kind of gave them an opportunity to clean up the place. When we got there, it was spick and span, and you could tell that it had been freshly cleaned and mopped and all the things. But what really stood out for me was the basis for the people being there. They categorize their detainees based on criminal threat level and in criminal history. And, violent criminals, for example, have a high level of threat, as they should. But then low threat levels are people who have no criminal history at all, or who maybe have been there for just a minor traffic infraction. And they had, as of yesterday, their census was 1,079 detainees, and almost 700 of them were of the low threat. So, people who had no criminal history, had no violence at all in this country. We had an opportunity to actually interview 3 of the detainees. When a member of Congress comes, they put out a sign-up sheet and they can volunteer to meet with us. And 3 gentlemen did, and they did allow us to meet with them. Now, granted, in the rooms where we were all supervised. There were so many ICE agents and members of the hierarchy of ICE were there to supervise our visit and listen to everything we said. But we did have an opportunity to visit with these folks. And again, one gentleman that I met had lived in the United States here, had been working in construction here in the Metroplex area for 26 years, is married, had 4 children born in this country, all under the age of 10. He's the sole support for his family, and he had no criminal background history, was pulled over basically in a traffic situation because he believed the color of his skin, and now he's going to be deported back to El Salvador.
All right. So aside from how clean everything looked, because it looked like it had been cleaned up before you guys got there, how did you think that people were being treated while being detained? Because every time we do one of these stories, we hear, kind of a varying degree of what's going on. What was your take?
Well, the gentleman reported to us, they got food every day. They got an opportunity to shower every day. They had an opportunity to have their outside exercise. They get 2 hours a day to do that, and they were able to do that. And we did witness those things, in fact, happening. We toured the kitchen and the food service. We looked at the food that they were going to serve them that day. And we saw gentlemen, individuals out exercising in the field and the outside during their planned recess. So we did see all of those things happening while we were there.
This week, the DHS opened a detention facility called Louisiana Lockup in Angola. The Louisiana State Penitentiary is really known as one of the most notorious and harshest prisons in the country. Let's take a listen to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and Attorney General Pam Bondi during the opening.
If you traffic drugs and kill our next generation of Americans, and if you traffic our children and men and women, absolutely there's consequences. You're going to end up here.
If you commit a violent crime in this country, if you rape a child, if you commit a murder, if you commit a horrible, heinous crime, we are going to prosecute you here, and we are going to keep you here for the rest of your life.
So, first, let me just get your opinion on what you just heard before I ask my next question.
Sure. Well, again, I think we all are in agreement that violent criminals, that's been our immigration laws for a very long time, that if you are here and you commit violent acts of crime and against our society, you are eligible for deportation for sure. And I ever want agrees with that. No one wants to the point where they're saying violent rapists killing people. Nobody wants those folks. We have a lot of laws on the books, but that is not the kind of people I saw at the Bluebonnet facility. And most of those folks had no criminal history. And I think that that's really the distinction that we're trying to make here. Everyone agrees that if you commit violent crime in this country, you need to be in prison and you don't need to be on our streets. That is not up for debate. But what is up for debate is the Trump administration just wildly picking people off the street solely because of the color of their skin when they have no criminal history and are not a threat to society like that.
Hey, I also wanted to ask you about Florida while I have you, because the Immigration Detention Center that we've all been talking about, Alligator Alcatraz, can now stay open after a federal appeals court ruled against a lower court's decision that shut down the facility. So a huge back and forth on this since the start. The DHS stating this lawsuit was never about environmental impact, but more about open border judges barring law enforcement. Look, each one is different, right? But what do you think about this Alligator Alcatraz?
Well, you know, it's an inhumane situation, and they didn't follow the rules right. But I think it also goes more to the ping pong of what's happening in our judiciary. You know, we're having lack of consistency. I don't know if you saw just recently, there's been a lot of federal judge criticism over the Supreme Court in particular by not giving clear direction to the judiciary to help adjudicate these things, so we don't have this back and forth so dramatically amongst our opinions. But it was clear that they didn't follow the rules of all the environmental impacts, and you know, and a court upheld that. And it's not open border activist judges bullshit that people say all the time. I mean, I'm so sick of that. At the end of the day, we have due process in this country. We have rules that need to be followed, and that's what we all want to see happen.
All right. Well, I appreciate your honesty, and Texas Democratic Congresswoman Julie Johnson telling us your opinion there. We thank you very much for joining us. As always, it's good to see you. Thank you very much.